Welcome to Accountability for Employees. I am your host for this session, and I do want to thank you all for taking the time to invest in your own development and participate in this year's Staff Recognition Week training seminars. We're really happy to be able to bring you 30 sessions over the 3 days of learning, and I really hope that you were able to find some other activities to participate in as well. I'm always a little disappointed that I'm really busy with this week, so I don't get to use the rec center. I always wish I could do that. So anyway, I hope you guys have found something else to do. And I also yesterday, I'm not going to talk a long time, but yesterday I went on to the Staff Advisory Council website and found the where they gave out the awards. So that's very interesting too, and really is relatively short. So if you want to see who won some of those Staff Advisory Council awards, I recommend you going and looking at that. And they've got some cute videos out there, so highly recommend. So now I'm going to go on and introduce and thank our presenter, Ray Lyon. She is the Associate Director of the Missouri Training Institute. And thank you, Ray, for bringing us this important and interesting topic. And I'm actually going to turn off my mic and let Ray take it away from here.
Thank you, Susan. Well, welcome everybody and good morning. I know 8:30 is bright and early, top of the morning for many of us. So I appreciate you joining me this morning. And Susan is going to kind of be my eyes. I've got lots of other screens that I'm looking at and other windows. So don't hesitate to interrupt me, Susan, if you notice somebody's raised their hand, or if there's a comment over in the chat, feel free to use that as well. So if you have questions or you need me to clarify anything, and you'd like to use the chat in order to do that, I prefer you keep it on everyone as opposed to just me. That way Susan can flag me down. If there is something that you want just me to address, maybe we could do that through an email afterwards, and that way I can spend some time with you one-on-one. But I'm open to just a dialogue. So if you want to do an easy way to unmute yourself, if you just hold down the space bar, kind of like a CB, just keep holding it down for the duration of the time that you'd like to talk. That's a wonderful and easy way for you to unmute yourself. A raised hand, though, brings you to the top of the view window. So that's also an easy way to be recognized. So I'm open to all of those things, whatever works easiest for you. So as Susan said, I'm the Associate Director at MTI. I love my job. That's probably the most important thing to remember about me. However, my practical experience in management started, way back in the 80s when I was promoted to a supervisor, probably because I was really good at the job that I was doing, not because I was good at supervising others. And a lot of us, that's how we got our start in management, is because we were technically good at the job that we were doing. And most of you know what Missouri Training Institute does. We do customized training programs, but I want to introduce you to something new that Missouri Training Institute is doing. And our most exciting things right now are Facebook Live chats. And we do those every other Thursday. So we're going to have one tomorrow morning, or I guess actually this one's going to be in the afternoon. And we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. So if you have your phone handy, you can actually just snap a picture of our QR code for our Facebook chats and get signed up and follow us, and we'll send you reminders. We're also doing a podcast now. Those launched on Wednesday, last Wednesday. And we cover topics that inspire and inform professionals. We do everything in 30 minutes or less. So lots of things and topics that touch on what professionals need to know and want to know. And we're always taking suggestions and ideas that might be helpful to you in the workplace. So things about trust and team dynamics, things for leaders, things for frontline workers, and those are every Wednesday. So follow us, connect with us. We're out there in every social media platform you could possibly want. And I encourage you to just get on board. So we love it, and we'd love to connect with you in every way possible. Almost too many ways, right? I know it's overwhelming. So would love to see you more often. Three big objectives that we're going to cover in what time we have remaining. And the first one is, I think, setting the foundation for what truly is accountability. And so just a couple of slides identifying and setting the stage for what do we need to know as leaders, as managers about accountability. And I think that will really help us then understand, how do we do it? What is accountability then, and what do we do, and how do we hold our employees accountable? Secondly, then, is recognizing those behaviors of an accountable leader. And that'll really then launch us into the last objective of identifying ways to create that culture of accountability for us and for our employees. So here is the definition, right? Accountability is about relationships. And when is the best time to build a relationship with your team and with the people on your team? Yesterday, right? Accountability is about relationships. And here's why. You, as a supervisor, manager, leader, however you want to call yourself, your job is to get work done through others, right? That means people have to have a willingness to follow you. And that willingness is prompted by, how much do they trust you? How much do they want to follow you? Do they want to get behind your cause, your mission, and the purpose of the work and the team, right? Accountability is results focused and outcomes based. Accountability is about the end, right? Responsibility is about the task. Okay? So you need to focus as a leader on the relationships that you're building with the people that you're asking to do the work. Okay? So when you think about accountability, that's where your sight needs to be. It needs to be on the end result. So really take stock of the relationships that you have with the people that you're asking to do the work, because you cannot mandate accountability, right? You can't force that. You need to have very clear expectations of what this looks like, right? Set those expectations so people will know what it is that you want. Right? And I think many times as supervisors, we think we've been very clear about that. And so my question to you as a business consultant is, how do you know? How do you know if you've been clear about that? Have you asked? Right? And so very clear expectations is the way to start. And then have those frequent conversations about the progress. Are you doing one-on-ones? How often are you doing them? Are you talking about the progress frequently? How do people know where they stand in relation to the goal, right? And so setting those very clear expectations and having those frequent conversations about progress creates what we call a cadence of accountability, right? And that's what we want to be having, because the bottom line, this is about relationships. Are people still willing to do what you're asking them to do? And we need to be, as leaders, creating that positive culture that motivates people to fulfill those commitments, right? Because honestly, bottom line is, I've never felt bad about letting a number down. Have you? Right? I don't look at that number. It's just a random number, right? I know where it's coming from. It's coming from last week's number. It's coming from, last year's number or quarterly, guesstimate. but I don't feel bad about letting a number down. When I haven't achieved what my boss has expected of me, honestly, I feel bad about that because of who my boss is and what my boss expects of me. And I don't want to let my team down, but I don't feel bad about the number, right? And so that's where that relationship is so important. And if you haven't built it, then why would I really try to achieve it, right? So focus on those relationships. Now I'm going to ask you a question. And so this is going to be one of those times, Susan, we might look for either a raised hand or something in the chat. So get those fingers ready. But let me ask you this. How do you know if you have an accountability problem, right? What would you see going on in your department or with your team to know if you have an accountability problem? How would you know? All right, so Linda was first on the board there, and she says blame shifting. All right, so blaming definitely, and then it could be shifting, right? One time it's that person, and then that person defends it, and now it's that person. So we have good finger pointing going on. Awesome. What else? What else is happening? Sarah says things not getting done on time or done well. So we have some quality issues. We have missed deadlines. Oh, Jennifer, we've got no one inputting, right? Low team morale, Susan says. Yes, we've got kind of poor attitudes, right? People aren't vested in what's going on. Alyssa, continually making the same mistakes. Nice one, definitely. Right, we've got repeat. I call those frequent flyers, right? Deanne says gossip. Yeah, those water cooler conversations. And that's really where the important stuff's happening, right? The meeting after the meeting. Yeah, yeah. Oh, one person gets away with everything. Definitely. Nice add on there. Right? So that's how you know when you have an accountability problem, right? You've got the missed deadlines, you've got the repeat mistakes, you have the variability in quality, you have a wide range of performance issues, right? You always have that one person who's overachieving, maybe because they're picking up where your slackers are letting off, right? Oh, maybe you have that inability to find the root cause of those continued issues. Yeah. And you have that lack of trust, right? So you have those relationship issues, right? People aren't contributing, and we have that lack of quality because of low trust. You have those poor team dynamics because of the toxicity of what's going on. People aren't sharing. People aren't willing to bring their best self, much less say, you know what, I don't get it, or I don't understand, or guess what, boss, I made a mistake. Right? We're not being vulnerable with one another. Absolutely. Right? You're right on target. That's how you know as a leader when you have an accountability problem. So here's the thing, and here's what none of us as leaders want to hear. It's you. Many times when you are seeing these things happen, an accountability issue leads directly back to us, right? I know, we don't want to hear it, but guess what? You're responsible for the outcomes of the teams that you're in charge of. A team or department's accountability problem is most likely a coaching problem in disguise. I know it's painful. It's, what Alanis Morissette says, it's that jagged pill. Because here's what's happening. Either we've trained it that way, or we haven't fixed it yet. Okay? So we know we need to take action. All right? I know. I know. And so I'm here to massage your heart. All right? But it's time. It's time to take some action. And that's why you're here. So let's do it. All right? And let's do it together. But let me ask you this. Why is accountability so hard? Let's just do it. Why is it so hard? Why is it hard? Why do we continue? Why do we continue to have to talk about this and massage each other's hearts? Bingo. Yes, the individuality, right? What you do with one person might not necessarily work with another, right? Every team member is different. Deanna says people don't want to be disliked. We don't want to admit we're wrong. You got it, our own egos. Confrontation's never fun. The time. Yes, the time it takes to invest. But let me tell you this. You're either going to invest it up front, or guess what, my friend? You're going to invest it on the back end when it's more painful, right? You're going to have to invest it somewhere. Yeah, is it more painful to put that $200 in your bank account in order to save for maybe 40 years in the future? Of course. But guess what? I'd better be a millionaire when I'm 65 than worry about spending it when I'm 21 and I have all this earning potential than when I'm 65 and I have very little time for earning potential. Yes, it's called compounding, right? And it's going to hit us either way. So I encourage you, invest up front or invest right now. You are right. Harvard Business Review did a study, and you are straight on. It is about relationships. We know that. Relationships take time. Trust is a process, not an event. All right? It's a process, not an event. And you're spot on. Managers are more focused on how they're being perceived by their direct reports, by their team, instead of the outcomes they're producing. Right? Wow. So would I rather be likable? Sure, but you know what? In the end, I'm going to be likable because guess what? I'm helping my team succeed. I'm helping you learn, grow, develop. I'm helping you realize your potential because you're also achieving. I don't want to focus so much on my fans that I lose sight of my players. Nobody wants to go to an arena where their team is not winning. Okay? You're not going to sell any tickets if your team is losing, has a losing season. Half of all managers are bad at accountability. Don't feel like you're not in company. All right. So let me share with you. This is Patrick Lencioni. I love him, right? He's an easy, he's nodding his head. Yes. He's an easy read. He's easy to understand. He's got great humor. Maybe he's somebody you want to kind of get on the bandwagon with. There's so many gurus out there. Follow one or two of them. You don't have to jump on everybody's bandwagon because let me tell you, in all the decades I've been studying management and leadership and teaching it and training it and consulting in it, we're all saying the same thing. We just package it differently, but we all are saying the same thing. So find who is delivering it on the plate that's most appealing to you and then buy in. Because it's all the same. Right? Patrick Lencioni is one that I can get on board with. So let me share with you what he says. It's about four minutes, a little over 4 minutes, but he talks about the best kind of accountability. So I want you to listen for that. And then I want you to listen for where it starts. Okay, two things. The best kind of accountability and where it comes from. Okay. Susan, we tested this at the beginning. Let's fingers crossed still. All right.
They're not going to have the courage to hold one another accountable. Notice what I said there. I didn't say the leader holding them accountable. I said them holding one another accountable. You see, on great teams, accountability is peer-to-peer. Peer pressure in your organization is the best kind of accountability. You want people turning to one another. What's the opposite of that is when people see a team member not supporting something, they go, oh, hey boss, I want to tell you, she's not supporting this. Don't tell her it was me that told you, but I just want you to know. Then the boss is like, oh, great, I get to go. And he goes to that person, hey, I understand you're not doing it. Who told you that? Oh, don't worry about who told you. I just want to, and now they're wondering who ratted them out, and there's all this politics, and the leader's dragged into it. What a great thing when people turn to one another. What's wrong? What's going on? I don't think this is what we agreed to. And give them the benefit of the doubt to explain what's happening, but call them on it directly. Okay? Now, how do we create a team environment where there's peer accountability and we as leaders are not getting dragged into it all the time? Well, there's an irony to this. The only way to create an environment where people will hold each other accountable is if we as leaders are willing to confront difficult issues. See, the irony is if I as a leader am willing to confront people, then people know, well, he's going to do it anyway. We might as well do it for each other. But if I, as a leader, do not like to hold people accountable, and let me tell you something, I don't. I'm bad at this one. This is my problem as a leader. I'm very aware of that. I do not like to hold people accountable. You know what that means? My team isn't going to do it. Why should they do it? Pat's going to let you off the hook anyway. See, the irony is by me not being willing to, they're not going to do it. By the way, there's a technical term for people who don't like to hold their folks accountable. I don't know if you've ever studied graduate level psychology or business, but I'm what's called a wuss. Okay? And you know what's funny? Most of the leaders I work with are also wusses. Most of them don't think so. In fact, most CEOs I work with will say, well, Pat, I don't have a problem with accountability. Let's just move right on to the next thing. And I'm like, well, that's great to know. Why do you say that, though? And they say, well, because I fire people all the time. I mean, I fired a guy just last week. Pick someone. I'll fire him right now just to prove it to you. Of course, firing someone is often the last act of cowardice, not accountability. Sometimes it's necessary. Oh, I know that. But oftentimes it's not. See, let me tell you a couple stories. I worked with a CEO once. He got hired by a big company that was kind of struggling. And they gave him the title of CEO, President, and Chief Operating Officer. He had all the big titles. A year after stabilizing this company, he went to the board of directors and he said, listen, I don't want to be the president and chief operating officer anymore. I just want to be the CEO and focus on strategy and externals. I want to hire somebody to run the day-to-day operations. The board said, hey, you've earned the right to do that, fine. So he went out looking for a new president and chief operating officer. And while he was out looking, one of the members of his team, who I will call Fred started to tell his peers, I'm going to be the next president. It will be me. And I remember this, and I thought, it must be true. I mean, who would say that? Well, people did not like Fred at all on the executive team. He was not liked at all. And people were really concerned that they were going to have to work for this guy. So finally, one member of the executive team went to the CEO and said, can I ask you a question? The CEO said, sure. He said, did you know that Fred is telling everybody he's going to be the next president? And the CEO said, no, I had no idea. That's news to me. I had not heard that. And he said, okay, next question. Is he going to be the next president? The CEO said, oh, no, I would never do that. No, no, there's no chance, no. Oh, good, good, good. Okay, last question. Are you going to tell him to stop telling everybody that? Here's what the CEO said in this case verbatim, but I've heard this from many leaders over the years, the same kind of answer. The CEO said, oh, I don't have the time and the energy for that. I don't have the time and the energy for that. I don't know about you, but can you imagine the CEO picking up the phone? Hey, Fred, it's the CEO. How you doing? Yeah. Hey, you're not going to be the next president. No, you're not. Yeah. Kind of pissing me off that you're telling everybody that. Yeah, you should stop, buddy. Yeah, if you don't stop doing that, something bad's going to happen to you. Okay, have a great day. Bye-bye. Who's tired? I'm not tired. That took what, 10 seconds?
All right. So we got to get over the notion it doesn't take any time, right? It doesn't take any time. Because trust me, it is an investment, right? But it's one with a lot of return. Okay. So invest in your people. Invest in your people. It is worth it. And invest up front. Okay, so what kind of accountability did he say is the best kind of accountability? Okay, put that in the chat. You got it. That was just who could type the fastest. You got it. Peer to peer. Okay, peer to peer. And we know peer pressure is huge, right? We know that that's huge. Where does it start? The leader. You're exactly right. Right? Leaders go first. Okay? It always starts with you. You go first. You set the tone. You have to be aware of your mood. You have to be aware of everything that you're bringing every single day. And I'm sorry to tell you, but you don't get the luxury of a bad hair day. All right? You either, Keith. Okay? You don't get that luxury. I know it. Okay. So let's start thinking about behaviors, because here it is. When I talk about behaviors, keep in mind, behaviors are things people can see you do or hear you say. Okay? And people judge us, right? They create a perception of you, not based on what you're thinking, right? Not based on your intentions of what you intend to do, but based on what you do, right? Those intentions have to manifest themselves in actions. You can have the best of intentions, but if you don't do something about them, people don't know how to treat you. We teach other people how to treat us. And so it is important then for when you have those intentions, for you to enact them. Those are the behaviors. So every morning when you look yourself in the mirror, what would you tell yourself about being an accountable leader? And I want you to just take a minute and I want you to think about, what is that mantra? If you are really trying to move the needle and be a more accountable leader or a more intentional accountable leader, what do you need to tell yourself? What do you need to tell yourself every morning in that mirror, either on your way to work or as you're building yourself up? What do you need to tell yourself to be an accountable leader? What would that say to you? And then just, if you come up with a little something, right? What would that be? What would that be? Jennifer, lead by example. Ivy, set a good example. Linda, take down the walls. Yeah, you've got this. And Newton. And again, if these are last names, please do the right thing. Yeah, encourage, inspire, Melissa says. Be positive. Yeah. Bowman, accountability starts with you, right? And you've got it. You need to have kind of that mantra. Positive thinking leads to positive actions. We can build our mind around those things, right? So come up with that mantra, right? Believe those things to enact those things, all right? Again, people can't read our minds. They can only see us do those things. So find out, what is your mantra, right? What do you believe as an accountable leader, okay? think about these behaviors. Know yourself. I think being an accountable leader starts within, right? Starts within. Increase your own self-awareness. Know what you bring to the table. I do not believe that you, or anybody for that matter, that you have to be well-rounded. I don't believe that. I believe that you are a talented but imperfect person. Okay? So know your strengths. Know your strengths and what you can bring to the table every single day. If you know that, that gives you an opportunity to leverage the strengths of other people. Right? You have talents, but you're not perfect. But your team can be, right? And that's what creates that interdependency where we can celebrate our differences. Okay? We are talented but imperfect people, but we need one another and we come together to create that interdependency around the same purpose. That's what a team is, right? Own up to your mistakes. That's also being an accountable leader. I mentioned that one time at a conference where I was speaking to a room full of hospital administrators. And I was talking about being a vulnerable leader and telling your people what you're not good at. And I remember after I got off the stage, it was an actual stage, and I got off and I was done. And I was packing up to leave. And one gentleman came up to me, and he was quite a bit older than I was. And he kind of shook that finger at me and he said, I would never do that, little lady. And I, being the very self-confident person that I am, I said, well, that's, under the understanding that they don't already know. I know what you're thinking, and I was thinking it too, but after I said it. And, how true though is that? Sometimes we're the last people to know what we're not good at, right? But think about that. Become very self-aware. Learn how to give meaningful feedback, which means ask your people, how do you like to receive feedback? Ask them. You mentioned that all people are different, right? Somebody mentioned that earlier. So let's find out what is most meaningful for you when receiving feedback. How do you like to receive feedback? Seek input from other people about something that could have gone better, right? You don't have to know everything, but maybe I need to know where to go to get something, right? Ask for other people's input. Know your own limits. Know what you're capable of and when it's time to ask for help, right? So understand your capacity and delegate. Delegate is a wonderful strategy for development, right? And know what is a task or, that can be delegated. We don't delegate a core responsibility, of course, but delegation is a great development tool and empower others, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but empower and delegate. And then as a leader, I think it's important to take time, step back, reflect. I call it like get on the balcony, get out of the weeds, look up, right? And really think about what's going and you're going, I don't have time. You don't have time not to, right? Great leaders take that time, right? You don't have time not to. Focus on what you control. Control the controllables. And at the heart of that is you, your responses. What you control is you. Don't take setbacks personally. Don't take setbacks personally. Learn from them and move forward. And when you receive criticism, thank the other person, because for somebody, especially if it's a direct report, to give you that type of feedback, do you know how much courage that takes? Right? Thank you, because that must have been hard for you to give me that information. I appreciate that. And if you can't respond more than that in the moment because your heart's pounding, that's okay. But think about it. Maybe you need to come back tomorrow and say, hey, you know, I thought about what you told me yesterday, and this is what I'm going to do about it. And you hold me to that. I appreciate that. Right? We teach people how to treat us. And if we're working to be an accountable leader, boy, did we just take the lead on that in receiving feedback. Okay? Good job. All right, so here's another question for you. You can take a moment, all right? You can take a moment. What do you need to do? Is there something that you're thinking of? Maybe somebody mentioned something in the chats or something that's occurred to you. Is there something that you need to be doing or that you need to remember in order to be an accountable leader? Maybe just kind of raise your game a little bit, or something that you've been doing that maybe you need to dust off, right? What do you need to remember about being an accountable leader? Take a moment, think about it, put something in the chat. It is hard to leave from behind. And it says, keep my own attitude under control and positive. And you know, I'm just thinking out loud. You don't have to answer this, but when I'm wondering if when you mean my own attitude, if you're talking about like ego attitude in that. I think, you know, sometimes that gets in our way, you know, our pride when we think about that. And it's hard sometimes when I think about me, sometimes it's hard for me to get over myself a little bit. Everyone else is not you. I love it. I love it. Thanks. That's nice. Yeah, everybody likes it different. You know, there used to be kind of that golden rule. We've all heard it maybe when we were growing up, you know, treat others as you'd like to be treated. And nothing is so untrue, right? Treat others as they'd like to be treated. Yeah, Sarah says, take the time. Yeah, you're going to spend it somewhere, you know, either investing up front or cleaning up on the back end, right? So slow down to speed up, if you will. Slow down to speed up. Good job, you guys. Thanks. Let's walk into this next and last objective. Sarah, stick with the employee that you aren't connecting with. Yeah, and find it, right? Find it somewhere. Lencioni has a really good, it's been out for a while, and maybe you already have it on your bookshelf, but it's, you know, the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and it's really about trust. And he's got assessments in there. He's got exercises. He has a companion guide called his field book. And it just aligns very well with the book. But it gives you actual things you can do with your team to help kind of walk you through trust building. I really encourage that. It's a good, you know, maybe one read with your team if you haven't tried that. Brene Brown does some excellent exercises too, and just gives you some very constructive activities to walk through. And please put other resources up there if you've done something that would help somebody else on their journey to becoming an accountable leader. Nice. All right. This last objective, again, I you know, define accountability was, you know, right on the ground, recognizing behaviors. We kind of got on the balcony a little bit. Now we're really going to get on the roof and thinking about that culture of accountability. And when I say culture, recognize that this is not an overnight thing. What's happening in your culture right now did not happen overnight. So swinging the pendulum of culture is also not going to happen overnight, that it needs to be a steady and consistent diet, okay? And I use the word cadence. So if you really are wanting to change the culture, you are going to have to be very committed, right? And you are going to have a very clear picture and objective of what you want this new and ideal culture to look like, all right? And I don't think it has to be a secret, right? I think this is something you can bring your team into. I think it's something that they could even help create the picture of, right? And it could be a subculture of the bigger picture. You know, maybe you don't control the whole department or organization or unit, but maybe you control this microcosm of the bigger department, right? And so I think it's great to maybe just think about it in what you do control, okay? But we're going to talk about then ways to create that maybe mini culture. So think about what you do control and control the controllables. But here's the thing, it takes time. Okay, so some things I'm going to unpack, and then I want to leave a little bit of time if you have any questions. Okay, so here's what we're going to unpack, these 5 bullets. Okay, the first one is define the vision. Now, this first bullet sounds weird, so you're going to have to chew on it for a little bit, probably beyond this maybe. But we can only see what we have words for. I know that's weird. That's a weird sentence. We can only see what we have words for. So what that's basically saying is create the vision, write it down, right? Because I can't picture the end. I can't picture where it is we're trying to get in my culture if I can't see it. And I can't see it if I don't have words for it, right? And accountability is about the result, right? It is about the outcome. Where do we want to be in our culture? So you must create that vision. And then we have to communicate it. We have to talk about it. We have to continually have that in front of us. Don't waver. Don't change the words. Keep it the same. And it needs to be a steady diet. All right? It needs to be a steady diet of that. If and when, right, we have negative behaviors or behaviors that don't contribute to creating that culture or get us closer to that vision, they need to be quashed immediately. Do not let toxic behaviors start to infiltrate this vision, right? It is your job to take action. Isn't that why you get the big bucks? Right? It's your job. Take action. Everybody else is waiting for you to do that. They want you to do it. Right? Take action. And if you want to talk about how we can coach through those toxic behaviors, call me, email me, look me up. I'm on a million different platforms, right? Dial in, follow us, podcast, whatever. All right, we talk about those things, but you got to jump on it. Even if you do a horrible job, at least you've done something. Okay, quash those toxic behaviors. Just do something. Set goals that align with that development. All right, there's all kinds of things you can measure. And you don't need to measure all kinds of things. You only need to measure the things that are going to get you where you're trying to go. Okay. So don't measure just what's nice to know. Measure the things you need to know that's going to move the needle where you're going. Okay? So they need to be measurable and they need to be individual. Maybe we all have different functions, but we're all trying to reach the same goal. So what you're measuring for this person might be a little bit different for that person because we have different tasks. Okay? But both of those tasks lead us to the end result. So they have to be solid, all right? And give people the power to make the decisions that impact them. That's that part of that empowerment. Don't overmanage them, right? If they're not meeting the goals, then they need to course correct, right? So their numbers are going to give them the feedback they need, right? All you have to do is, how's it going, right? Are you getting closer? Why not? What do you need to do to get there? You don't have to know that. They're going to know that in order to course correct, right? So give them the authority to make those decisions and encourage them to, make those decisions. So what do you need to do differently? All right, let them do that. People want to grow, they want to develop, they want to be on some type of development plan. That is the number one job consideration that millennials are giving to why they're joining organizations. So get on the bandwagon, right? Give people learning opportunities. Make sure that progress, or at least access to progress updates, is available to them. All right. Don't always just hold the keys to that kind of information. Make it available broadly. All right. And I think that's motivating when they can check their own progress. All right. So don't wait until next Monday's meeting to reveal the statistics. They need to be able to have access to that whenever they need it. All right. Give meaningful feedback. So learn how to do it and then do it. Right? And then do it. And make sure they have the right information. Continually coach. Right? When whatever sporting event you've ever been to, where is that coach? Is he or she in the locker room? Is he or she in the stands? No. He or she is right there beside the players, on the field, in the dugout, right? On the court, sidelines, continually. Here's some questions, right? Where are you now? What will it look like in a week? What are the barriers for you to achieve that goal? I'm not solving your problems. I'm asking you so you can begin to solve your problems, so you can look at your own work. And if I'm asking you these questions, I'm teaching you to begin asking these questions of yourself, of your teammates, right? I'm teaching you how to hold your teammates accountable, right? So you start asking yourself these questions before you even get to me, right? Continually coach. And then recognize and celebrate success. Sincere, that word should be highlighted in 50-point font. Sincere praise is the most motivating. We know that. But it needs to be specific. It can't just be like, hey, great job. Good. About what? Be specific and be sincere. Okay? Now, if you still find accountability hard, see those other points. Go back, because it's still the manager. Okay? It's always the manager. Just know that. Okay? Once in a while, you get just a bad apple who just won't drink the Kool-Aid, but always go back. What am I not doing? What am I not getting? Okay? But ask these things. Have I communicated the purpose? Right? The why. Am I giving a good enough explanation of the rationale of, where we're going and the outcome and what I need from my people? Are the expectations that I'm, have, are they realistic? Are they clear? Well, how do I know that? Right? Have I asked them, what am I expecting of you? Maybe I think they are, but maybe they don't even know, right? Has the deadline been communicated, right? Is it realistic? What else might be going on in the department? What else might be going on in their lives that's maybe making this a really hard push? And has the priority of the task been internalized? Does that make sense? Do I have things that are competing with one another, right? Maybe things have been rearranged and I'm asking for things that aren't really making sense. And then of course, how do I know? How do I know? Yes, Susan says what gets measured is what gets done. And sometimes we measure the wrong things. Okay. Awesome. Let me ask before we sign off, it looks like we've got about 8 minutes. What questions or comments or like uh-ohs or oh no's do you have when you think about accountability for your team? Feel free if you want to raise your hand if it's easier to verbalize or if you just want to stick something in the chat. Well, that means I've either been crystal clear we've got some shine. Well, I'm going to encourage you guys. Like I said, tomorrow. Oh, we got one. Do you have any suggestions on making employees accountability with frequent turnover? I'm guessing you're talking, Ivy, about the new ones. And you can just, a wire an in on that one. When you have frequent turnover. So bringing the new people up to speed as quickly as possible. Let me know if that's what you're referring to. You have to switch task assignments. So somebody leaves a position and then somebody's having to take over their job of the position that they've left, is what I think. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. I would, as soon as possible, obviously, if they have kind of the background, if they've cross-trained in the person who's vacated that position, maybe they have to freshen those skills a little bit. But of course, accountability is going to be results-based. So very clearly, we want to start with the end result, and then we can back into the tasks. So what does the end result need to look like? And then we can get to the responsibilities of that job that bring us to the end result, and then prioritize for them. Because that might not be, of course, their first priority, right? So they might not know how to prioritize those tasks because that's not their true job function. They're just covering for someone. So start with the end in mind, kind of a Covey idea there. And then responsibilities, right? Task teaching, and then prioritize for them. So if all other things had to cease, what must get done? But accountability is results-based. You're welcome. I'm sorry about turnover. That's a tough. And maybe it's just when I think about turnover, are we not onboarding and able to keep? Or are you just in one of those departments where that is just part of your function? Is it just a position that is a launching point? And there are within many organizations, this is a launching point position within my organization, and that's just the way it is. So I know a lot of places like customer service, everybody starts out in customer service, right? Or everybody starts out at the switchboard, right? And it's just a position.
Or if you work with a lot of student employees.
Exactly. It's just the nature of the position. Thank you, Susan. Yeah. So then we got to think about, how do we handle the high turnover because it's just the way it is? Or do we need to be focusing on how do we reduce turnover? Yeah. And I always think that's, go back to my hiring practices or go back to my onboarding. Yeah, just part-time staff, yes, students. Yeah. We're going to talk about bringing them up to speed as quickly as possible, right? Yeah. Good question.
For many years, I worked at Campus Dining Services, and that was a job that a lot of students would take because they could get a job really quickly until they could find something that they would prefer to do. So, and we found a lot of times that you want to do as much team building as you can so that they have a feeling of family there, or, people that they want to be around. It's not hard work, but it's not fun work if you don't like the people you're around.
They didn't want to leave.
Right.
Well, shameless plug for Facebook Live chat tomorrow, podcasts, open enrollments that we do, lots of fun things. So would love to see you and connect with you and have you follow us on those things. If you don't have any more questions, I'm going to turn it over to Susan, and we'll say thanks for joining. And I want all of you, go be great.
Right.
Go be great.
Right. We've got one more question, and it's a good one.
Yeah. How might one address a toxic attitude without making it worse? Oh, that is a good question. Gosh, in 1 minute or less.
Yes.
Probably the first thing I would do is, bring them in one-on-one, and I would want to talk about the professionalism and how it might be. I want to share my perspective on how the professional behavior might be affecting the team. And then I give some specific examples. But I would call it professional behavior and not attitude.
Yes.
Then it becomes very subjective.
And I agree that specific examples are really important because sometimes people just aren't self-aware. That was a good one to end on.
Yeah.
Whoa, we could do a whole session on that.
I know it. And we do have a podcast actually on team dynamics and toxic behaviors.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely recommend the podcast as well. I love podcasts. So I'm subscribed to way too many, but I plan on catching up on the MTI podcasts. Probably next week. I'm on vacation, so I've got some time to do that.
Good. I think we've got 5 of them out there. So we'd love to have you. Love to have you. All right. Thanks for having me, Susan, and thanks for joining me this morning. Go be great.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your time. And I will be sending out a Qualtrics evaluation later today, probably. If not today, tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.